This week's episode is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of introduction. As many of you will know, my mother recently passed away. She was always my biggest supporter, always encouraged me to make new things and to make things the way that I wanted to make them. And she was also a gamer, you know, she was always playing some video game or another when I was a kid, and her tastes very much influenced mine. And I think it's safe to say that without my mother, PortsCenter wouldn't exist at all. So if you'll indulge me this week, I'll be looking at a couple of games that she used to play while I was a kid. I'll still be saying fuck, obviously. My mum was massively into perennial arcade classic Pac-Man. And she's not alone either. There are still people to this day who, when they think about our quaint little hobby, picture not Master Chief or Commander Shepard or even Sonic or Mario, but this spherical yellow pill popper. Pac-Man is arguably the video game, the craze, gaming distilled down to its purest form, and the character is the first iconic mascot in the industry. There were previous efforts, obviously, but almost nobody remembers the left paddle from Pong amazing action cartoon hour. Probably because it was on opposite Dallas. The success of Pac-Man led to sequels and spin-offs and continues to do so even today, but it also spawned a number of imitators and clones. Some, like the Shigeru Miyamoto-designed Devil World, mostly pilfered the basic gameplay design. Others were a little less subtle. The casual theft of intellectual property was rife in the 80s and 90s, when everybody from bedroom coders right the way up to the big boys of video game development would crank out a clone of a pre-existing and popular arcade game in the hopes of making a quick buck before the copyright holder noticed. This kind of thing became far less prevalent in the 90s, but you'd still find hobbyists and bedroom coders knocking out clones of old arcade games and slapping them up on BBSs, sometimes they'd wind up on magazine cover discs, and you could even purchase them via mail order with actual money. My mum loved Pac-Man, but it was a shareware clone for the Amiga called DELUXE PACMAN that really grabbed her attention. It was created by Edgar M.
Vidal the Carpathian.
But that's not actually true, so I'm just gonna call him Eddie. DELUXE PACMAN takes the basic premise of a pizza that eats dots whilst pursued by phantoms and tweaks it significantly. Sprites are bigger, which means the maze is smaller, which you might think is a bit rubbish, but rather than stick with one maze, the game features a succession of them. Clearing one maze brings you to the next, and so on, until you finish the game and reach an actual, proper ending. In the closing scenes of the game, Pac-Man finds himself in a darkened room, surrounded by the masses of multicolored ghosts he's consumed on his gluttonous rampage. He has a moment of clarity and finds himself overcome with a strong sense of sorrow, remorse, guilt for the countless lives that the game just dumps you onto a game over screen. As if these changes weren't enough, Eddie decided to throw power-ups and collectibles into the mix. There's the obvious fruits and snack food, but Pac-Man can also collect a number of augmentations, ranging from a dealie that lets you skip a random number of levels, to a shield that protects you from ghosts, to a motherfucking handgun. Which raises the question, how the fuck do you shoot and kill a ghost? Not content with merely stealing a game premise and a copyrighted character, Eddie also openly admits to stealing the game's music from other places, but hey, he didn't know who made the music, so it's totally cool for him to include it in a knockoff game he's selling for $10. That's totally fine. Well above board, no problem there. Jesus Christ, this thing is a legal minefield. It's no wonder that in 1997 Eddie released the entire game online for free before unceremoniously and very quietly removing it from his website entirely. He did later produce a PC update called DELUXE PACMAN, which, looks like this. Not really much of an improvement, is it? There's also another PC game by a chap called Neil Roy, which is actually called Deluxe Pac-Man, which is a high-def knockoff of Eddie's original effort, even stealing some of the sound effects and music, which strikes me as, pretty bloody hilarious. Roy's version is released under a Creative Commons license, so at least it's not trying to make money off of someone else's work. Unlike some people. My mum loved this game. It was always one of her favourites, and it became one of mine too when I was a kid. She would spend hours just sat at the computer playing this game, and if it wasn't this, then it was some other arcade game, Arkanoid, Space Invaders, but she also had an affinity for puzzle games, like Tetris, which isn't much of a revelation because every bugger on the planet likes Tetris. In fact, she was obsessed with Tetris. She and my dad got me a Game Boy for my 8th birthday, which came with a copy of Tetris, and I think she spent more time with it than I did. Of course, before that, she was playing a Tetris clone on the Amiga called TETTRIX, with an X, developed by the blandly named Neil Somerville. Seriously, what am I supposed to do with that name? I mean, Eddie Vidgal's name, I got a halfway decent, slightly lame Ghostbusters 2 joke out of that, but Neil Somerville? Sounds like the head of shipping at a cheese distribution centre. The game's controlled entirely with the mouse. You move your tetromino by moving the mouse up and down, you rotate with the left mouse button, and you drop it with the right. Playing Tetris horizontally instead of vertically is a simple twist, but it completely changes your approach to the game, as well as how your brain thinks about how the shapes lock together. It's a bit like that first-person Tetris variant you can play online, only just facing one direction, obviously. This reimagining of Tetris is tough as balls. It's not enough that the whole thing's sideways, but the well is actually a little bit wider than a conventional Tetris game, so it takes more bricks to get a line. And to make matters worse, the colour of the tetrominos is randomly determined, which you may be surprised to hear actually makes things that little bit more difficult. In most official Tetris releases, each brick has a uniform pattern or colour. It's a simple thing, but it's a little easier to identify what type of brick you're about to place. You can't keep your eye on the next brick display and the game well at the same time, after all, so the colour of the brick serves as a convenient shorthand to let you know what's coming next. But because the colours are randomly selected for each brick as it's queued up, you lose that association, which can fuck with your head a little. The human brain really is a poorly constructed piece of shit, isn't it? There are a plethora of Tetris clones that are significantly better than this one, but none of them offer the sort of challenge that TETTRIX offers. Except for first-person Tetris, obviously. It's a unique take on the Tetris formula, challenging, frustrating, sideways. It's easy to see just why my mum got so sucked into it. I could honestly go on about the games that my mum used to play, the hours that she lost playing the Egyptian-themed puzzle game Curse of Ra, the days she sank into building an empire in the Settlers, the way she monopolised our very first PC by playing Puzzle Bobble, of all things. I could keep going, and I will. No doubt games that my mother used to play will pop up in future episodes. She had a very broad taste, after all. And the games that she used to play and the person that she was very much influenced the games that I play and the person that I am. So it's no doubt that the stuff that she liked is going to creep into future episodes. That's going to happen, and that's okay. Next week there'll be an ordinary episode of PortsCenter, and then the week after that, and then the week after that, and so on until the premise basically runs its course. The wheels will fall off and it'll get stale, and clearly you will see in my eyes that the passion is long dead, and maybe I'm still doing it for the money. Who knows? We really won't know. Maybe we'll hit like Garfield Simpsons territory and I'm just cranking out episodes because the ad revenue is so good. At that point, you can stop watching. There's not really any point to it. That's not going to happen because this is something I'm very passionate about, and part of that is because it's the stuff that my mum played. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep making episodes. Thanks for letting me do something a bit different this week, and I will see you next time. Unless this is the episode that killed it for you, in which case, fuck off. Oh yeah! Oh yeah!